Hey everybody, I'm Yvonne Williams with Back to Earth Creations, and in this video I want to show you guys how to make, if it'll focus on it, this style of pendant, which also makes a really cool earring design. And we're actually going to be making this piece complete with the necklace, so let's go ahead and get started. I've begun by shaping some 16 gauge copper wire that's been enameled from parawire.com around this little bead jar that's 1.5 inches in diameter, or around 40 millimeters. You can use whatever size that you like. I just wanted to give you guys a frame of reference, and then doing a second piece around this other bead container that's only 1 inch in diameter. Super clumsy today, but that's all right. And I made them, you can make the little components longer than you need be so that you can curl up the ends as shown here, but you can make them in different sizes, all sorts of stuff. So the way that I curl up the ends is I'm just going to use my round nose pliers, not all the way at the tip of the pliers, but like in maybe 3 or 4 millimeters. And I use the same location, like the same thickness of the plier nose on each side to try to keep it symmetrical. And then I keep those mandrels on hand throughout the creation of this piece, though, that way I can always go back and make sure that it has a good shape. And right now I'm shooting for having a distance between those little loops to be able to fit a crystal. So if you're planning on doing that, you can kind of like just measure and gauge from there. Now I've gone over to my metalworking desk and I'm using a rubber and steel block because it kind of cuts down on the noise a bit, as well as this nylon head on my hammer. Links to all the different tools and materials will be down in the video description below, but I'm going through and just hammering lightly to kind of harden up. It helps the wires stiffen whenever you hammer it. Then check in with the cat, make sure you didn't wake her by hammering, and then realizing that no, she's pretty good, that's adorable. Yeah, it's a good kitty. Didn't wake her, so now I gotta terrorize her until she does wake up. Poor cat. So for the next step, we could use 28 gauge or 26 gauge. This piece here I used 26 gauge on, but 28 gauge is a lot easier on my hands, so I choose to go with that one. But you could use 24 gauge, 22 gauge, just so long as it fits through your beads, you can use it. Here I've pulled off about an arm span, and I'm like 5'4", so it's roughly, call it 5 feet of the 28 gauge wire. And I'm threading through a 10 millimeter bead. This one is garnet. You really can do this out of any, you could use resin beads, you could use gemstone, glass, just whatever you have on hand. But I do like to use the 10, 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, if I can have all of those different sizes. But in general, I typically do a 10, 8, 6, and 4 millimeter bead. So in around the center of the 5 feet of wire that we just pulled off, I've done 5 wraps around our smaller horseshoe shape, I guess. And I'm going to try to keep that centered up as much as I can right now. And then coming through the other side, I'm going to try to keep that bead as snug between the two pieces of 16 gauge wire as possible. As I do, I start with just 5 and then check my tension. Excuse me, sorry. But my goal here is to get the wire to where, see right here, it's lining up with the outer edge of the sphere, the bead that we just put on there. I want it to come not just to the edge of that, like that's where I would get it to if I were doing a cross wire, as I showed on the other piece. But here I want it to go to the center of the next bead also. So, I mean, if this is a 10 millimeter bead, I need it to come out 5 millimeters, and then the next bead is an 8 millimeters, so I need to go 4 millimeters more so that I can hit to the center of that bead. In theory, it's off a little bit because it's like on a curve and all this other stuff, but I just hope that communicates the idea. Oh boy, I hope I'm not clearing my throat through this whole thing, sorry. And then just coming through and trying to keep things nice and tight. I like to do at least 5 rotations before I start building, like going over to the other side and building off in that direction, because it keeps things, it kind of helps to hold the tension. If you only do like 2 or 3 wraps, oh, and I just flung wire everywhere. If you only do 1, 2, or 3 wraps, then it can loosen up a lot. Whereas if you do quite a few, it'll like has more surface area, I guess, to hold tension. And so threading on the other bead to the other side. And these were just some gemstones that I picked that kind of, are often associated with like the chakras and things, but which I don't even know if I pronounced that right. But again, it's cannot emphasize enough, do whatever color blend that you'd like to do. In trying to do the same number of wraps on each side, but with the 28 gauge wire, it's so small, like it's such a thin wire that I don't think anybody is going to get too nitpicky about, oh, this one's 10 on this side and that one's 11 on that one. So I'm coming through and I'm checking, and my tension really loosened up on that one. You can see it's wobbly compared to the other. Like you can see that bead held tight, whereas this one, it's got way too much wiggle to it. So I'm actually, if that happens with yours, just don't hesitate to backtrack a little bit. What's really nice about para wire is it's a very durable, dead soft wire, so you can work with it quite a bit before it will become brittle. And so here you can see I didn't even bother like straightening it back out with my nylon jaw pliers or anything. I just started wrapping again, holding a much tighter tension. Now these ones that I've added on I purchased them thinking that they were carnelian, but I think they're actually just a red agate, but they're still pretty. Now I'm doing some tiger's eye. And if you get little loops in your wire, go ahead and fix them before they become a kink, which can be much harder to tidy up in your work. And now it's just a matter of repeating that same process of adding a bead in, kind of just along the curve of the crescent there. This is very similar to a pattern that I used in some of my elf ears, a video I posted, gosh, years ago at this point. Now I'm experimenting with, I didn't know which would fit better. I have some like bulky 5mm. I say bulky because if you hold them up next to my 5mm amethyst, they're very, very big. Like I think they're actually closer to a 6mm, honestly, and decided that I wanted to go with a 4mm green aventurine. So again, don't hesitate to try out a different stone or a different size or something, because you never know what you might like. Sometimes the way I picture something in my head is not how it looks in reality, and you just never know till you try. Now going from green aventurine to another 4mm bead of lapis lazuli, and oh, I wove the wrong way, so I'm going to go back. And I've been weaving in, I call it a figure 8 stitch. Some other artisans call it a corset weave, but where you're weaving like a figure 8 around the 2 wires. And hopefully we'll get a nice little close-up of that in a sec. And now I did have some 3mm amethyst and some 2mm rainbow moonstone that I got from Fire Mountain Gems like a lifetime ago. Like it really has been like a decade. But hashtag hoarding. And you can see that just helps kind of bring the taper down. If you can't find gemstone beads that you like that are in your price range that are that small, you could use some like metal beads that I know are carried in a 4, 3, 2, and even sometimes 1mm size that can give you a really nice taper down. So I've repeated the bead and weaving on both sides, and now I'm testing to see, oh, do I want to add in that other little piece? Do I just want to do the drop? Like, I don't know yet. So until then, kind of work on it a little bit more, I'm going to continue, I call it a 2-beat figure 8 weave. It's where I'm weaving twice on one wire, then weaving on over to the other side, doing 2 rotations, weaving back over to the other side. I've covered this in quite a few other tutorials, and if you guys are interested, I could actually do a written tutorial over this one as well as a craft along kit. Let me know down in the comments if you guys would be interested in that, because I didn't know, I don't know, like I think that'd be pretty cool. I think I'd have a lot of fun putting it together. But I know that sometimes these videos aren't quite as crisp, I guess, as I want them to be. And sometimes, photographs are a good supplement. but I'm just continuing. I didn't really keep track or count on this one. I probably should have for symmetry's sake, but I just wove until it was full, until that space was. And then I just started doing, I think, 10 rotations around the one 16 gauge wire to bring it up to where the loop started. You can see here, it just comes up. Because I wanted to fill up that space using my fingernails. You could use your pliers or, you know, whatever kind of tool you have on hand to push the wire down, keep it nice and snug and dense. And now I'm going to do that same thing on the other side. I had some uneven weaving, and I just like to get in there with my fingernail and kind of open it up some. So I've done that on both sides, and now I'm coming through and stringing on this amethyst drop that I actually salvaged from another necklace. I am going to have links to the closest that I can find, like similar items. Oh, there we go, off screen. Sorry, don't mean to go out of frame. But I'm just, the wire from the right side of the pendant I've threaded through, and now the wire from the left side of the pendant I've threaded through as well. Just being real careful to avoid kinks as much as possible so the wire can stay nice and strong and intact. And I'm not happy with just 2 strands of 28 gauge wire going through there, so I'm actually going to loop that around through the little loopy part there. Super technical terminology, I know, but and the larger I keep my loops, whenever, like how you can see I'm actually pulling back quite a bit to leave that wire nice and open, I find it prevents kinks a little bit a little bit. And so just getting in there with my bent nose, turning that kink and trying to open it back up. The wire's not perfect, but it doesn't have to be. We just have to get it through. There we go. And then I'm going to tighten that down. And now we're going to do that same thing from the other side. Yep, and you can see just coming up through from the back. And there isn't really a rhyme or reason to this. It's kind of akin to sewing on a button. It doesn't matter how you get there, just that it holds and kind of looks the way that you want it to. But yeah, it does kind of make me feel like hand sewing with a 28 gauge wire. It's fidgety for sure, but we can take it and just pull it on through. There it goes. And now we have 4 lengths of wire going through, which makes me feel much more secure about the longevity of this piece, that, you know, if it's going to break it, now it has twice as much wire it's going to have to work through. So now I've opened up the little loops there, and I'm just weaving about 10 rotations, I think 10 or 15 around, again to tie off the end of our wire and to try to keep it symmetrical. The closer it is to the center of the piece, the more I pay attention to symmetry. I don't know why, that's just what I do. But if it's like on the edge, I'm like, who cares? Like, it's art, it's whatever it wants to be. But then closer towards the middle, I find that if the pieces are, you know, if the points are right next to each other, then I'm a lot more concerned. But that's just me. I'm super messy with my artwork and stuff. So be however meticulous and careful that you want to be. We've gone ahead and trimmed it and smushed down the pokey bits. And I'm going to do that same thing on the other side. And now we can come through, and you can see the shaping of the wire. It almost gave it like, almost like the rim of like a bonnet, or something. Like there's a nice aspect of 3-dimension in there. It's not just a perfectly flat design, and I kind of like that. Excuse me, sorry. Now we're going to go through and make some bead links. A very like fancy decorative bead link kind of, but it's fun because it only really uses wire. Here I'm stringing up on a 20 gauge wire using about 3.5 inches, maybe 3 to 3.5 inches of wire before I do a 90-degree bend. And then I'm going to make a loop around my pliers. So sorry, the camera decided to go blurry for this, you guys. Like, I'm so professional. Oh no. And I'm going to do 3 rotations. So we have our little loop, we're holding on with our pliers, and you don't have to have a death grip here. For the most part, the wire is just going to stay there. So you don't want to be squeezing down so hard with your pliers that it's going to bite into the wire. You know, we're going to go ahead and do a 90-degree in the other direction, leaving enough space that we can do more coils on the other side. Just like this. Yeah, kind of bend that out of the way. And then there's 1 and 2 and 3 rotations. I left a little bit more space than what we needed, just so I could go off camera and you can't see, but that's okay. on. Okay, there we go. And it just continuing in the direction that the wire was already going. You can see I kind of went from the front to the back, and then I'm going to wrap a few times and then wrap a few times. At this point, it's purely decorative, so the links, are going to hold on really well. Because there's no little spots to like open. I see this pattern used quite a bit in like rosaries and many, handmade wire wrapped chains and things. And I think it's a great way to add just a little bit more something special to your pieces. Snip and smoosh. Keeping those pokey bits down. And there we are, just a nice little wrapped loop. And now to attach this to other things, we could use a jump ring, or we could make just a very simplistic bead link here with some 4mm amethyst. The bead that we just worked with, by the way, was a 6mm green aventurine. So sorry if my pronunciation's not correct. I read it like I see it. And so going through and just using our flat nose and round nose pliers to make little loops. And then I'm going to use this little bead as a connector. Sorry, I really didn't mean to go off camera so much on this, but it happens. Whenever I get like in the zone, the auto zone, I start forgetting that I'm supposed to be recording, and I just start crafting, and I bring it closer and closer to my face. But I'm going in with my bent nose pliers, opening that up, and then hooking it onto our focal point, and then closing it nice and clean connection, and then hooking on our wrapped loop and closing it. And then I don't have it pictured here just yet, but we'll get there. I'm going to make another link and add it to the far end of the green aventurine, so it's like amethyst, aventurine, amethyst. And then I'm going to be doing that same thing again off of the right side. So, symmetry. You could have it be however asymmetrical as you like, though, or whatever bead combination. Say hey to the boss. He's like, hey, boss. She's a good cat. I like her. And now, time to start on the rest of the neckline. These are size 11 seed beads that I bought in, like, a hank. They're a translucent purple, and I absolutely love them. I love the way that seed beads feel against my skin. First off, they're great, especially as a person with metal allergies. With seed beads, I don't have to worry about them. I mean, granted, with parawire, it holds up fantastically, but sometimes I just don't like the way that metal chain feels against my skin, or like it'll get tangled up in my hair and stuff. I really love the way that glass seed beads just kind of sit smoothly on the skin. It's really nice. You never have to worry about them discoloring your skin, and it's a nice way to break up, a solid metal design with just something different. You could also use ribbon or leather cord, or just hand make the chain all the way up. I'm using a 7-strand AccuFlex beading wire for this, and then some little, these are 1.5, I think, millimeter crimp beads. Just threading that on, threading through the loop. You could also use like a split ring or something. There's an infinite number of ways that you can make the connections on your necklaces. And then threading back up through the crimp bead, as well as, like, I came through almost the entire, like, restranded through the whole length of the glass seed beads. Just stringing them back on. I really love stringing beads. Like, it was my very first necklaces only contained strung beads, and so it's very, very zen for me. I like it. It looks really simple, but it puts my mind in a happy place. And so I'm squishing that down to make it, be where I want it to be. And now I'm going to come through and use a tool called crimp pliers that are designed specifically for this, so they do the job perfectly. You can see here they have like a round spot and then like a bean spot. It's like a little thingy, like a sad face, frown, or a kidney bean. I don't know, but you use the kidney bean side to smoosh, and then, gosh, why do you have to be blurry, camera? You can see it makes it into like a little kidney bean, and then you take it and you fold it, and the little bean folds on itself and makes just a little boop, and that it's gripping onto the wire really nicely. I try to never cut my beading wire right up against the crimp bead, because if ever the crimp bead loosens, I feel like the more wire that's in there keeps it from just like slipping out. So now I've slid on a 16 gauge 3/16 inch jump ring that I make out of aluminum and attached a lobster claw clasp to, and I'm just rethreading back through the seed beads. And you can see there's the tip of our other one, and I'm just giving a little bit of overlap. These seed beads handled like a champ, by the way, with like being able to fit so much stringing material inside of them. 10 out of 10 wood string again. And then I'm just going to cinch down a little tighter than what I would normally care for. You can see that's sitting pretty stiff, but I keep it nice and tight, and then I come through and we do our crimping. So there's the kidney bean and there's the boop. Okay, and now I'm going to come in and trim that little bit of beading wire, boop, and it loosens right back up. So it has a nice like drape to it. Then you could add extender chain if you wanted. I was making this piece for posting on Etsy, and then I just add extender chain to suit whoever buys it. But I really loved that contrast between the wire work and the bead links with the glass chain. I've gone ahead and finished up doing the crimp beads on the AccuFlex beading wire. In a perfect world, I would have had some like little crimp tubes, or like it's like a little protector for the wire to keep it from rubbing, as well as some crimp covers. But this is what I have to work with right now. You could, if you wanted, add some extender chain to the end here, or make the necklace however long or short. Like this is just one of many ways that you could finish off this necklace, but I really liked the kind of solid bead next to the wire wrapping, and I love the way that the glass beads feel against my neck. With this one, like this style, I've been knocking around the idea, like a couple of different ideas actually. One of them was, instead of having a drop coming down, it is to have like a wire tree, like use this as the frame for a tree, as well as to quite possibly, let me see if I can dig it out, use it as like, again, probably without the bead, but to use like a charm or something as a backing, and use it as a frame for a wire wrapped cabochon. I thought that would be pretty cool, and I really liked that labradorite. But again, the bead sticking out was kind of wonky. But there's a lot of different potential, opportunities and things that you can do with this, and I'd love to see what y'all make. So be sure to leave like pictures and stuff over. I think there should be links to our Discord down in the video description, as well as to Instagram, where you can actually tag me and use the hashtag craftalongwithvon if you want, if you're into that. That way, not just myself, but other crafty folks can see what you're up to. But I really liked making this piece. And here you can see just some of the different examples too. You could do it in whatever gemstone type that you like. Some of these I went through and whenever we did the initial 5 rotations, this one I fed both wires through the wire and then started building it off and had like a kind of cross beam bare wire in between. And I kind of liked the way that looked, but again, lots of room for variation. You can hammer the wire, but I find it makes it a little more difficult to get a nice clean coiling. You could do with no dingle dangle bead and just have it, this one's just spirals. This one I made a bail out of some stainless steel rings that I use for weaving chainmail, and it hangs really nicely. This one I just did a little wire wrapped quartz crystal hanging down. It was a little dingle dangle. You can also, there's nothing saying what kind of gems you can and can't use. I'd love to make one with like varying tones of like smoky quartz, or like from a white to black, like smoky or clear to black, or white to dark gray, moonstone and labradorite combo. I think that would look really cool to kind of encompass the phases of the moon. I also am working on some different designs where I can turn it sideways and have it be just a cute little moon pendant. So let me know down in the comments if you guys would be interested in seeing videos of any of those as a variation off of this kind of core design. Thanks guys so much for hanging out with me during this video. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please leave them down in the comment area below. All of the links to the tools and materials that I'm using, my social media, all of the different things down in the video description. And those are affiliate links, so anything that y'all purchase through there really helps, kind of generate some revenue for our company and keep the blood flowing so I can buy more beads. I'm not addicted. You're addicted. Anyways, I wanted to talk one more thing about this style, and that is we could take it and instead of doing, I guess the one that I'm wearing, instead of having a crystal be on it, we could actually do like a little like ear hook thingy. Like I'd curve around a little thing like hinged for making like a really cool looking earring. Let me know if it looks good as a circlet too, you guys. Okay, let me know if you guys want to see variations of this pendant style in future tutorials, as well as any other requests that y'all might have. If you'd like to get your hands on some of the cabochons that I make, as well as spools of wire from Parawire and stuff, be sure to check out our, gosh, words are so hard, our crafty crates on Etsy, as well as our monthly craft along kits on Patreon. I also have a few more left at the time of recording of our mugs of stuff to run clearance to kind of get rid of. I've been storing just a couple of mugs for a while and they need to go home with one of you. So, but they're chock full of just beads and stuff. And then also we do have some dud boxes and crap boxes and stuff over on our Etsy as well. So commercial over. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. And I really look forward to seeing y'all in our next video. So until then, happy crafting. Bye. Dirty kitten toe beans. Like, share, and subscribe. Woo. Woo. Why do you put up with me? I don't know. Give me them toes.